Hey Internet. Now since this is my 10th episode, I figured I'd do something a little special, plus I've got the new set, so I should maybe celebrate that. And I've noticed that people on the internet tend to really like top 10 videos, lists, stuff like that, so I figure why not make the obvious choice and do something like that now. So this time around I'm gonna do my top 15 favorite SNES games. Alright, so number 15 is Secret of Mana. It's a great old RPG. It's got really fun and colorful graphics and music, great gameplay. It actually kind of innovative as far as the battle system goes. You get to switch between multiple characters kind of on the fly and actually play as a whole party at once. Also, it's one of the first RPGs I can think of where the enemies you encounter them in real time, like in the world as you walk around. It doesn't cut to a separate battle screen similar to like your Dragon Warriors, Final Fantasies, those kind of games. So it was something new and different as far as RPGs go. It's just a whole lot of fun. It's got a good story, pretty good length to it, much like every other RPG ever made. It's made by Square Enix. I think it was only half of it at the time, just Square made this one. But still a good game nonetheless. The one weird thing you may notice though is that the two lead characters in here appear to be directly stolen sprites from Chrono Trigger. Not necessarily stolen, same company made them, but odd nonetheless. Now number 14 is actually Killer Instinct. It's right in the era where a lot of fighting games were coming out. Your Primal Rage, Mortal Kombat obviously, World Heroes, Clay Fighter. Lots of games like that were coming out, so there was no shortage of fighters to play. This one, however, was actually... It stood above the rest. It was a really good fighting game. I'd put it actually right up there with Mortal Kombat as far as best games at the time. The music's pretty decent. You've got a really good variety of characters. There's actually different move sets and just play styles for each character, so it really felt like they actually put some effort into it. Also, I think this was one of the first games to actually introduce the large multi-hit combos that it's now famous for with the whole combo breaker thing. Combo breaker! Honestly, I mean, it's really just a good game and the only fighter on my list. So if you haven't played it, which I'm not sure how that's even possible if you're old enough to remember the Super Nintendo era, but if you haven't, I definitely recommend picking it up. It's actually also on the 64, and actually if you're going to grab a version, that's probably the better one to grab. And now that Microsoft has finally given Rare the license to make their franchises again, it's also on the Xbox One, so you could even pick that one up and play the new and probably not improved version. Alright, number 13 is Mega Man X. I actually preferred Mega Man X2, but I don't have a copy of that yet. And Mega Man X is still quite good. It's a lot like the same Mega Man games we knew and loved from the NES era, but with much better graphics and music. And that's saying something because the music was actually quite good in the originals. It's also just as hard as the original Mega Mans, and if you're watching the gameplay footage in the corner of the screen, then you'll see that I utterly suck at them. That's not specific to this game, that's Mega Man across the board. The bosses in here actually looks like there was some thought put into them. I know toward the end with like 5 and 6 there, the bosses in Mega Man really started to look stupid. So it was good that they put a little more effort into it again. Also, all the upgrades and new extra abilities you can unlock throughout the game, as well as the Charged Mega Buster, was really nice. It gave you reason to actually revisit some of the stages or to play them in a specific order to actually try and unlock everything. So it was a really decent game, even just as far as platformers go, let alone Mega Man games. I definitely recommend picking it up if you haven't played it. And actually, Mega Man X, not too expensive to pick up either. I've got, I think, 3 copies laying around. None of them cost me more than $10. X2 and 3 might cost you a lot more, but you can always get the X Collection on PS2 and I believe PSP as well for not much at all, honestly. Alright, so number 12 is Illusions of Gaia. Actually, it's just Illusion of Gaia, but I always seem to mispronounce it, so we'll go with it. This is actually a really good RPG, once again made by, well, half of Square Enix, the company that just brought you every RPG you've ever wanted to play. This was actually just made by the Enix half, but still very good. It's a really great RPG. One of the aspects I love specifically here is not only is it an RPG, but there's a lot of different puzzle elements, a lot of like block sliding puzzles or various ways to fight enemies, get around enemies, do various things. You also get rewarded and sometimes can't progress without clearing every enemy in the room when you enter a new room in a dungeon. So it takes a little more logic and thought than just your average game. You can't just burn through it. The graphics and music in this game are also just very notable, very good. Also, you can turn into this really cool big knight guy that's a lot stronger than Will, the main character. So it actually kind of lets you play in easy mode. There's still certain puzzles you can't solve with him, but there are certain areas where it's great to have the added strength and just plow through enemies. You get to smile gleefully as you do it even. Alright, so number 11, ActRaiser. This is actually a great game and a very original one at that. I haven't seen many other games like it, although parts of it actually remind me of lots of other stuff. There's first the platformer aspect is the first thing you see, and it actually reminds me a lot of an obscure NES game called SNES, which I probably horribly mispronounced, so I'll put a screenshot up so you can see what I'm talking about. It's your basic platformer of the era. You know, you run through with your weapon, which you upgrade on occasion. You kill things as they show off, boss fight at the end of the level. The bosses here, even though they're hack and slash, you still have to kind of learn their pattern to be able to take them down. So it'll take you a couple tries at each boss. So it adds a little bit of challenge. Once you finish the platforming part, it actually goes to simulation city building mode, where you actually have the people that pray to you because you are their god in this game, very Molyneux style. You actually have to help them, direct them in the rebuilding of their city and clearing the monsters of the area they live in. So it actually, it's very involved, and because it keeps changing up, the game stays really interesting. If it were just the platformer or just the simulation mode, you'd probably get really bored, but because it changes it up and keeps giving you new things to do, it makes it really fun, really interesting. The music in this is also great. I know specifically the music you're hearing now is from Fillmore, the first town you save, and it's just really good. I've also, if you're a fan of OC Remix at all, a couple really decent versions of this are out there. But that's off topic. Mostly just want to say, great game. Alright, so next I've got Super Castlevania 4. It's just what you'd expect from a Castlevania game. It's an amazing side-scroller. It's got amazing graphics, incredible music. Speaking of which, bloody fucking tears. But it's actually added a little bit more than the old games too. For Castlevania 1 and 3, it was your basic walkthrough, kill everything when you come to it. And that's fun, we all loved it. For Castlevania 4, the graphics are incredibly better, but also because of the various chips they had on the SNES, you'll see a lot of foreground and background kind of switching, so your sprite won't necessarily always be the top layer. That's a little more technical than it sounds. It really just means that your sprite will sometimes appear behind things. You'll be in the background. Say you could go through a door and be behind a chain link fence. It's little things like that that make the game just extra pretty and extra good to look at. You know, a little more effort went into it. Once again, the music, insane here because it's even better than what they could do with the first couple, so when they did it on this one, it just came out great. Bloody Tears from Simon's Quest versus this game is immensely better, and that's my favorite video game song, which is why I've mentioned it, I believe, 4 times now. So, if nothing else, play this to listen to that song. Also though, you actually get to move your whip in 8 directions now, and once you've shot it, you can then flail it around like a raving moron. So that's also kind of fun to do for a little bit. In fact, I think I killed a couple enemies just by letting the whip drop and they walked into it, which is hysterical beyond all belief. Alright, so number 9 is a gimme for anybody. It's Super Mario World. This is instant nostalgia for anybody, being as this is probably the first Super Nintendo game most people have played. The second you hear the music, see the graphics of the level, you instantly remember your entire childhood all over again. But more than just the nostalgia factor, this is also an amazing game. The levels in here were incredibly well done. It's really fun, but also kind of tricky. Especially, there's a lot of secret exits, there's extra worlds, the bonus levels, all sorts of extra stuff that really keep you going in the level, or in the game rather. I mean, technically you can go through with beating, I think, only 11 levels and actually clear the game. However, to really get the most out of it, you want to get all 96 levels found and complete to get the little star next to your save to show that you've fully finished the game. And to do that will take a lot of dedication and a lot of lost lives, because they actually found a way to make it tricky and still fun. Because of that, I definitely say this is a game anyone that likes platformers or Mario games should definitely play if somehow you haven't yet. But I don't see how that's possible, because this is one of the franchises that Nintendo will never let die. This game specifically, I think, has been reprinted on at least 4 different consoles now, if you include WiiWare, so everyone's had the opportunity to play it multiple times. Alright, so the next game is actually a really fun puzzle game that I used to play constantly, and that would be Kirby's Avalanche. Sega also had a clone just like it. For those of you that didn't play Super Nintendo growing up, this is Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. This version's better though because A, Nintendo, and B, when you went through here you actually had little brief introductions between the action screens, basically, where you would just see the various characters from the franchise have a little bit of funny, witty dialogue between Kirby and the character. So it had the humor that you've come to expect from early Nintendo games like Kirby, but it's also just a really fun and challenging puzzle game, honestly. It's kind of like a gem swapper, but not as much. I'd say a mix between gem swapping and puzzle fighter. Also, it lets you play 2 players, so it gets very competitive, really fun. You can have your friends over and kick their ass in a game they probably don't yet understand. And as you go through, the enemies actually get much, much harder as you go through tournament mode, so it really gives you a difficulty curve, it gives you a reason to keep going. It's just really fun puzzle game. The music also in this is incredibly catchy, and for some reason always reminds me of the Wishbone theme, but most of you probably don't even know what that show is, so I'll just glaze over that comment and keep on going. Alright, so next up, sticking with Kirby, I've got Kirby Superstar. This is another game like Super Mario World that's been reprinted multiple times because Nintendo refuses to let anything die once they learn it works. This, however, actually has good reason to stick around. Not only is it a good platformer and a Kirby game, which is one of their flagship franchises, but the way they set the game up is actually quite good. It is your standard platformer, and it is similar to a lot of other Kirby games, but it's built into little, almost episodic segments, so you can play them in any order and beat the game in small portions at a time. It also has a couple little mini games, kind of a break up from the action to just add a little more content, a little more fun to it. There's also great music, which you've come to expect, the same happy, upbeat, fun kind of music. This one also adds a couple new features though, which were actually really fun. The first being any power that you suck in and absorb, you can then create a cohort from, and they will follow you around using that power to kill anyone you encounter. It makes boss fights a lot easier. It also lets you, if you find one power you like, turn your cohort into it, absorb a second power, and then if you get hit and lose that one, you can always reabsorb your cohort and get that power back. So it gives you a way to kind of save your favorite thing, carry it around with you. It makes the game more fun, interesting, adds another level of thought to everything when you go through it. So this is definitely one to pick up, and like I said, if you don't have a Super Nintendo or missed it the first time around, it's been reprinted on the DS, and I believe is also available on WiiWare on either the Wii or Wii U. So there are definitely ways to find this if you haven't somehow played it yet. Hey Internet, real quick, I didn't realize how much I was yammering on in this video and how much time it's actually taking up. So I'm just gonna chop the list in half here and give the other bit next weekend. So, okay, I guess that's it really. Yeah, I got nothing. Okay, bye.